Go ahead.
Item number 1, consider appointment to the Cypress Black Bayou Recreation and Water Conservation District Board of Commissioners for a 5-year term to expire July 31st, 2028.
All right, we have a number, there they are all right there, and that one withdrew, okay. All right, we have remaining 2, 4, 6 candidates, as it were, for the people that have sent in resumes and information seeking to be appointed to the next term as the Cypress Black Bayou Recreation Water Conservation District Board. The term begins August 1st, as I understand it. When July 31st expires. We've had one withdrawal. Mr. Jesse Franks has asked that his name be withdrawn from consideration. So that leaves us with 6. And so what we would do, well, I'm just going to go down. We're going to go down in alphabetical order. I'm going to take one. We had been notified early on with this, but one of the candidates for consideration, Rodney Madden, is out of the country on a family vacation, and but we do have a kind of an introductory video. I had not met him, so I met him and said, "Well, just tell me why you." And so I filmed that, so a minute and 53 seconds, a little bit of introduction for the jurors to see and consider. So first of all, we'll have Christopher Thomas Baker, then we'll follow with Robert Berry, then we're going to put Rodney Madden at the end since it's a flash drive video. Then we'll have Peter Andy Monica, Gregory Therio, Tom N. Thompson will be the last, and then we'll put Rodney Madden in the final seat. So if we could, Mr. Baker, if you would come forward and introduce yourself and tell us why probably a good place to start, why you would like to serve in this position, and then we'll have questions.
My name is Chris Baker. I moved I was actually on the board previously for the school board, and then I actually moved to Halton, so I actually had to resign. We recently moved back to Old Palmetto Road, which is just a few houses down from the boat launch there on Old Palmetto Road. And I was urged by several people to put my name in if there was a potential vacancy. And so that's basically why I'm here. I'm not necessarily stumping for the job, but if there is a vacancy, I would be willing to serve in that capacity since I've done it before. I think the lakes are extremely important to the parish. The parks are an important part of that. They have been for years. I caught my first fish at that Old Palmetto Road boat dock in about 1979. So I think it's important that somebody, if there is a vacancy out there, that somebody that knows what they're doing is there. I mean, as y'all know, we're coming up for a millage renewal, and it's not really the time for somebody to be out there that needs a learning curve to get back involved. So I welcome any questions y'all have, and that's pretty much it. You
live just down from the boat launch. Do you live on the lake itself?
No, I don't live on the water. We're not waterfront, no.
Okay, just curious. All right. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Baker? All right. Anything else you want to share?
I think that's probably it.
All righty. Okay. Well, again, this is a term that begins August 1st, and it's not a matter. It's a new term. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chris.
Robert Berry. Mr. Berry.
All right, I appreciate the opportunity to come back before y'all on this. I think most of y'all are aware that I have been y'all's appointee for several years. I think kind of a record speaks for itself of what all of us have accomplished, the board, the jury, the city, everybody that's involved in the entity. A lot of people don't understand there's actually 5 boards that put people on as board members of the district. Since we kind of took over as interim director in 2013, make this quick, the park was not a desirable place to come to or use. The lakes were very in very bad shape. Black Bayou, for instance, at that launch, you couldn't even launch a boat. We worked with State Representative Jeff Thompson at the time to get a control on Salvinia. We've done a very good job of maintaining that. We've made $500,000 worth of cuts in our first year we were there to try to get the budget back under where we could handle it. The park was actually facing a $500,000 in the red, and we were able to bring it back and bring over $80,000 into our first year 6 months that we were there. Again, I think we've done a remarkable job with everybody involved. If you'll just kind of look at the home values around both the lakes in the last 4 years and see the assessments, it's a clear sign of what's there. I mean, that's easy accessible from Bobby Edmondson's office, tax assessor. Like I say, the other part that's probably being concerned or brought up, I'm going to let the legal counsel talk on that part of it. I would like to say, kind of closing, I don't know how many people have got to look at KTBS kind of broke the deal yesterday on our state parks and state lakes. It's not good. They took $42 million that was assigned that should have been used towards refurbishing and bringing their parks and stuff up to date, and also their museums. That was actually used to operate. That's been what they've been operating off of for several years now. Now they're in dire need. They need $14 million of immediate money to just get some of the stuff where they need to operate. They don't have that. Now they're trying to figure out how they're going to operate and pay what employees they do have there. So the legislative auditor is actually the one that came out with that report, and KTPS broke that yesterday. So it's a good article. But again, like I say, I think we've done, with everybody involved, a very remarkable job of protecting both the lakes that we have up here in our area. They're good to the community. Matt Brown was not able to be here today. He has ran Sports Spectrum Triathlon for the last 41 years. He actually sold it last year. It's being run by another operation. But in 2013, when we did take it over, he was actually looking at another site to start holding that because it was not feasible to hold it there anymore. It was in such bad repairs. So entertain any questions y'all have.
What year did you start? 2013, you were interim director?
Yes, sir. 2013 is when the board appointed me as interim director.
When did we appoint you as a member for the first time?
As what now?
As our representative of the jury?
I filled the unexpired term of Jerry Juneau, and that was in 2011.
2011, okay. I had that. It's on my phone.
Yes.
But it'd be a while. I'm not very good at that stuff. Okay, any questions by anybody on the jury?
All right.
Did
Thank
you-
you. Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, we'll move Peter Andy Modica. What it says on the sheet, would you rather be?
Andy.
Okay.
Andy Monica. I live on 818 West Lakeshore on the lake. And the only reason I put my name in this, I wasn't expected to speak today, but I put my name in for this because it was just a messed up board. And you all know it, you've all seen it in the press and all that. And so I just wanted to try to get things done right. And, you know, I've already been told that I'm not going to be on this board. I was not going to be selected. So because apparently, you know, everything's been decided or whatever, but I just wanted to speak up and say, hey, you know, let's do things right. You know, let's get someone on there that actually lives on the lake, that actually cares about the lake, and is not just using it for their own benefit. And I don't know if one person on that board is going to make a difference, but hopefully you're going to decide on one person that will actually try to make a difference. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Andy?
Mr. Randy, you said you already been told that you were not going to be,
Right.
so how do you feel about that? Do you think you have a fair share,
Oh, no.
a chance at this?
Oh, no. It's already been decided.
My
And who
question.
told you that?
Hmm?
And who told you that?
I don't think they want me to say that right now, so I'm going to be politically correct by not answering
Are
that.
already been appointed by us on other boards, isn't that correct?
Yes, yes.
Were those decided before you showed up?
No, don't believe. Anything else?
What other boards are you serving on?
I actually represent y'all as constable in Benton, and I'm also on the Adjusters Board for the NPC of Benton.
Adjustment board for the MPC, okay. Yeah, not to belabor it, but whoever told you that knows more than I know, so,
Yeah,
I don't know until we vote.
okay.
But you're,
Thank y'all.
I don't doubt what you said, somebody must have told you that, so. Wonder who it is. Guess we'll all find out. Gregory Theriot? Am I saying that right, Gregory? Theriot? Theriot. Got to drop the H, right? I'm sorry. I'll get it. Theriot, right?
Yes, sir.
Good.
So my name's Greg Terrio. I've lived in the area since 2015. Retired a year and a half ago out of Barksdale. I was an A-10 pilot, so unlike a lot of the folks you've seen here, this is my first opportunity, if you will, to serve the local public in any capacity, as well as, so obviously in this job I consider all stakeholders, you guys, the voters, homeowners, and the park. I have a family, we live on the lake, 102 Summit, and we love the park, we love the lake, and so I think that's why most people enjoy it, is why I do so. I hope to bring some objectivity and some an open mind to anything that comes up in any processes. I had a lot of experience running programs. I was a lieutenant colonel, which puts us in charge of a lot of different things, so pretty sure the learning curve is manageable. So, any questions?
You might find that lieutenant colonel was easier than what you're about to do. But that's a different perspective.
Yeah, that's very different.
Any other questions for Greg Theriot?
So you do live on the lake?
I do.
Okay.
That's correct. The address is 102 Summit.
What is your address on Willow Tree Summit?
I'm sorry?
What is your address?
It's just Summit Drive
Summit
in Benton. 102.
All righty. All right, being no
Colonel,
questions?
Have you ever served on any other, I know you said it's the first here, but I know you
Yeah.
you were born in Lafayette and served in, or lived in Vermilion Parish and whatnot.
No, sir.
Okay.
And you do have excellent background because you have a background in science and chemistry.
That's correct.
Which is great. Really is. We do, I want to say this for myself, I can't speak for the whole jury, but one of the things is that when we advertise for any position or any appointment on board, we have it in place that we request that each applicant submit a resume because Mr. Benton, he might know of that person, but I won't know that background. And so we've always did that, and I try to keep an open mind. I look at people's credentials and also how they present themselves. So I can't speak for everybody else, but I try and make sure that I look and see who's going to be the best person anytime that we make an appointment. I'm looking at your credential. You have excellent credentials,
Thanks.
really do.
And leadership abilities.
I don't have any other questions other than just to say I grew up in an Air Force family. I grew up on Barksdale Air Force Base. So I appreciate what you have done and served, and I thank you for your service.
Appreciate the support. So,
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for Greg? All right, no other question.
I
Thank you.
appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for your willingness to serve us. All right. I got it all. Who did it now? Here it is. Tom Thompson, could we come forward, please?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Tom Thompson. I live at 4130 Lakeway Circle. My wife and I have lived there for a little over 32 years on the shores of Black Bayou Reservoir. I'm an avid kayaker. I've paddled every inch of shoreline of both these lakes. I have paddled the bayous and tributaries that feed them as far up as you can paddle a small kayak. We've led tours on them with the group I belong to. Locally in the area, we're very aware of the environment. We do regular cleanups at different public areas such as Bodcaw, Darcheat. We've marked canoe trails on Darcheat, Bodcaw, Lake Bistineau, and we maintain them. So I'm very concerned about the lakes. This lake actually, it's one thing Mr. Berry was right about. The lakes are really physically in good shape. I've seen in 32 years very little salvania, very few water hyacinths, once in a while, but not rarely do you see anything that detracts from the beauty of the lake. It's quiet. It evidently is well policed. We don't have a lot of loudness or problems on the lake. I just recently closed my law office, mainly had a trial practice. I am intimately familiar with the use of servitudes and disputes revolving around servitudes, boundary disputes. One of the major things that I see, and I've attended a number of commission meetings, one of the things I see people living on the lake upset about is a flowage servitude. And a lot of times I don't think they really understand what they were getting into when they bought their lot subject to that. But I know of no program to kind of educate the lakefront property owners and others about what this really means. I know of no effort, for instance, to track who's buying properties when they're bought, particularly on the waterfront, and making sure they have some basic information about, well, you own the land, but there's some restrictions. I find that once people, and it's a little bit like homeowner association restrictions, if you educate people and they kind of understand what they're getting into, they're more accepting. But that's just seems to me at the commission meetings that got heated, that was a flashpoint, what to do about that. And I think some of it is because people just don't understand it. And you can't depend on realtors to tell people. They want to sell the property. They don't want to blow the sale. I've served on the Northwest Louisiana Legal Services Corporation as a director for many years when I was a younger man. I have served 3 different city marshals as general counsel, in addition to maintaining my private practice. I've worked out of the Caddo DA's office as a special prosecutor. I've also worked as a special city prosecutor. So I understand working with groups and working for the public and what your responsibilities are. I have a lot more time than I've ever had before, and I love this lake, both of them. We intend to stay there forever. Never going to leave. Love it. There's nothing more pleasant than sitting on my patio and watching the sunset over the lake. It is clean. It is beautiful. And I was encouraged by some neighbors and some friends to ask that I be appointed. Like I say, I've attended the commission meetings. I've seen what the issues are. I think they can be resolved without the kind of anger that I've seen at some of them on both sides. And I'd like to be a part of that. I'd like to bring something back to the community that's given me so much. And I appreciate your consideration.
You got it.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could ask Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, Mr. Thompson, we're going to have a question.
Thompson, my apology. So let's say if we don't select you today, would you still be willing to serve in the capacity if we had another appointment with something else? We're always looking for people that have credentials, and you have excellent credentials, and you want to serve and you want to give something back, and I really appreciate you, putting yourself up to do this. I really do. So I was just curious.
I would be interested.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question?
Just a second. I do. Anybody else have any questions? Your idea about educating, particularly, just people before they buy a lot, how about the people that have been on there 10 or 20 years living on the lake? Do you think, is there a program or something to explain all that, or would that be something you'd have to put together?
I think it would have to be put together, but you could bring together people and you could work somewhat through some of the active homeowners associations. But you could also very easily track who's purchasing homes.
you know,
and who's bought one, and make sure you get something in their hands and give them the option of someone they can call and they can talk to.
I think it's a great idea.
I do, that's what that struck me. It says, whether, I don't know, unlike somebody else, I don't know who's going to, who we're going to appoint. But if it isn't you, I would hope that maybe we could call upon you to help us move in that direction, to create something, so.
I like to find the problem and try to solve it.
Well, it sounds like you've got a finger on something, I know. We too, as of next year, I'll have a lot of the shoreline, and I don't have it now, but then this time, but if I'm reelected, I will have with the new district through the redistricting. I guess you've got all the shoreline, well. Yeah, Juliana has her share too, don't you? Are you going to have any left next year? Okay, I got you. Okay, well, but anyway, thank you very much, and I appreciate your input. All right, so now we're down to a flash drive, Heath, for Rodney Madden. I'll say beforehand, I was the photographer. I was sitting there, I said, we don't know each other, so.
My name is Rodney Madden. I'm a candidate for the Cypress Bay Bayou Committee. I appreciate y'all taking the time and giving me an opportunity to speak to you today. One of the questions that was asked to me is,
We're going to auxiliary fee.
Here we go. Start it,
Start that guy over.
start it in the beginning. Move it over. There you go.
my name is Rodney Madden. I'm a candidate for the Cypress Bay Bayou Committee. I appreciate y'all taking the time and giving me an opportunity to speak to you today. One of the questions that was asked to me is, why would I want to do this? I go back to this lake as long as this lake has been there since its conception. My parents bought property in the early 70s. We watched it dig, and I've been able to watch this thing go from conception to where we are now, which is awesome. I mean, I want to commend the board and Robert and everyone that's on there now. They brought this thing from one place to another place, and it's an awesome ambassador for our parish. I think there's some things that need to change. We need to get in there and dig around and maybe make a few changes, just because it's a new time. We're all going through a new time since these last few years economically and everything. I've been fortunate to run a business for the last 20-something years. The Lord has blessed us with it. We've done well. I understand what it takes to work with the general public. I understand what it takes to work with employees. Just like on the board, I know a tremendous number of the commissioners or the police juries on the board. I know the commissioners on the Cypress Bay Bayou board already. So I feel like I can go in there and look as a new set of eyes and say, look, guys, these are some things we might want to change. We need to look at to go forward to make this a better park than what it is now, to keep this thing going from where y'all brought it in the past to the future. We all have to go through change, and that's sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. I just think there's opportunities that a fresh face can bring to there. And I think I have those abilities to work with everyone to make those changes. Once we get in there and examine, then we know what needs to be changed. But until then, we're just looking from the outside in, and I want to be inside, not outside.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Rodney.
How was that, sir?
We won't have a time for questions and answers. But that's Rodney Madden. Okay. Let me tell you how we're going to go with the vote, and then we'll open it up before we do vote for people, anybody that wants to come up and speak to this. But with this number of candidates, we don't have enough buttons to put everybody on there. So what we're going to do, we're going to we'll have a motion for when someone is nominated, a motion made to appoint a certain person. If it gets a second, we'll vote on that person. If the first, if they get 6 or more votes, there's 11 of us here, that's a majority of 6, then they will be the appointee. If they don't, we will tally that down, and we'll go to the next person who would be nominated. And with the second, we'll vote for that person. And if they don't get 6 votes or more, then if they do, they will be appointed. Otherwise, we'll just tally. So we'll go down until somebody gets the 6 votes. If we go through listening to nominations, and no one had six or more, obviously it stops when somebody gets 6 votes or more. But then they'll take have the top 2 that got the most votes, will then have a runoff between those 2. And and they will have been nominated and seconded, and then there will be a runoff of 2. So that's the way we will proceed. But before we do we have anybody at this point that would want to come forward and speak into our deliberation? Please state your name and your address, if you would.
Good afternoon. I'm Ron Machodas, 628 Stoner Avenue, Shreveport, Louisiana. I am Mr. Robert Berry's personal counsel in litigation.
Can you talk in the microphone a little better?
Pull it down just a second there.
Okay.
A little bit. There you go, Brian.
I am Mr. Berry's personal counsel in litigation. I'm here today to clear up some issues concerning the current status of the litigation between the state of Louisiana, Skylar Marvin, and Mr. Berry. And for those purposes, I brought some documents today to clear it up. So we have been through the trial court, the Court of Appeal, and the Louisiana Supreme Court. The trial court ruled in favor of Mr. Berry that it was not dual office holding. They ruled on that with a motion for summary judgment, and a judgment was rendered in that matter. The Attorney General attempted to intervene in that motion for summary judgment on the day of the hearing of the motion for summary judgment, and the trial court declined the intervention. We won that issue. We go to the Court of Appeal. We win that issue, the same issue on the motion for summary judgment. The Louisiana Supreme Court has not decided this case, and we have a pending application with the Louisiana Supreme Court. What they did was reversed and remanded the case on the issue of the motion for summary judgment back to the trial court for a decision, contrary to what some non-lawyers have been telling this board or jury, police jury, for months. So the first document I'm going to show you is an application for a rehearing, and you can see that on May 9th, 2023, we applied for a rehearing to the Louisiana Supreme Court. That application is still pending in the Supreme Court. They don't go back into session probably until the first week of October, and at that time, the court will either grant the rehearing or deny the rehearing. If they deny the rehearing, then we're going to have a trial again in the district court. And in evidence that there is no final decision in this matter.
I think I could stipulate that there's no final decision. We understand that. Does everybody understand? Anybody think that there's been a final decision? No, so that's a moot point. Can I stipulate? We're going to have a 3-minute.
Yes, sir.
We don't know if there's a bunch of people. I don't know how many want to speak, but we were just thinking if you could.
Okay. I'll speed it up a little bit.
Yeah, please do.
Just in evidence, I would like to present the motion filed by the State Attorney General's Office to consolidate the Berry case with the Marvin case and their case, and their application to set a trial date. So that indicates to me and to anyone that's in the legal profession that nothing is final, and I appreciate you agreeing to the stipulation. So this matter is still pending, and also there's an ethics matter pending, and the ethics board has agreed to wait until there's a final decision by the Louisiana Supreme Court. Thank you.
Could I ask you one thing? Is that ethics matter, the pending, is it the same matter, or is it the?
Same matter.
It's not the 2-year waiting period and you can't work for a board. It's not that one?
No.
And while you're on it?
It's
Okay.
the dual office holding position.
It's still the dual? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, we have another speaker who wants to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And as I told Mr. Machota, please try to keep it under 3 minutes. I got an egg timer here, but go I bet you will be.
brief.
Good.
And my name is Lee Ayers. I'm one of the lawyers for the Cypress Black Bayou Recreation Water Conservation District. I'm here to encourage this body to reappoint Mr. Berry. And one of the first things I want to talk to you about is Mr. Berry's good faith, because I know some of y'all may be concerned that he actually has the position of being a commissioner as well as being the position of being the executive director. And I want to tell you how that came about. I want to tell you about his good faith in that, in what he did. So as Mr. Berry indicated to you, he was first appointed in March of 2011. Well, in the summer of 2013, the issue came up as to whether or not he could also be not just a commissioner, but could he also be the interim executive director. And that issue came up in the summer of 2013, whether he could do both. I'm a lawyer for the district. I researched it. I'm here to tell you it was me. It was me. And other lawyers in my firm and elsewhere looked into the issue and looked at it and said, and came completely away from with the understanding that it would be both lawful and proper for him to be both interim executive director as well as to be a commissioner. And we told Mr. Berry that. And in reliance on our advice and our recommendations, our opinions, Mr. Berry took that job of being the interim executive director. Now, I won't bore you with all the details of how or why we came to that conclusion. All the research, it would take 20 minutes or maybe 45 minutes to explain all the details. But I can just tell you this, just in very brief summary fashion, neither position is elected. Only one of them is a part-time appointed position. The other one is a full-time employee position. Neither are elected. But again, that's just a very brief summary. My point is that we told Mr. Berry, and he relied on the advice of the lawyers. Now, that was in summer of 2013. In December of 2014, the issue came up the question came up as whether or not the interim label of Mr. Berry, because he was interim executive director, should that be removed? Should the interim label be removed and him just be executive director as opposed to him being, say, interim executive director, so just being executive director. So again, the lawyers looked at it. And I researched it again, double-checked it. We had another lawyer in my firm looked at it, not the same lawyer in 2013, so we now have multiple eyes on this. And all came to the conclusion that, yes, he could lawfully and properly serve as both executive director as well as a commissioner on the board. And again, we told him so. And again, he relied on that. So, and even after 2014, every once in a while at one of the public meetings of the regular session, regular board meetings of the district, somebody in the audience may ask about that. And I said on the record many, many times in front of Mr. Berry, on the record in public, and said, we've researched that, absolutely no question about it. Now, why am I telling y'all all that? Why am I telling y'all that? And the reason is as Mr. Michaud already explained, the lawsuit is not final. Mr. President, as you acknowledged, the lawsuit's not final, it's still pending. So there's been no final decisions whether that's proper or improper. I'll tell you, I thought I was correct then. I think I'm correct now that he's lawfully and properly able to serve in both of these capacities. 2 trial court judges have found that. 3 court of appeal judges found that, so I'm not completely in left field. And we can argue about what the outcome of the case may be in the future. What will ultimately be the outcome? Some different people may have different opinions. Some different people may have different predictions. But the thing I really wanted to get across to y'all was that there can be absolutely no dispute whatsoever, that Mr. Berry was completely in good faith, in complete reliance on the advice and opinions of the lawyers, saying it was okay to do so. So to the extent that your decision may be influenced by, well, he did this and maybe he, shouldn't have done this, he was relying on it. He's not a lawyer. He relied in good faith on the advice and the opinions of the lawyers, including me. And I'm standing here looking each of y'all in the eye to tell you that. What has he done since then? His record of service has been exemplary. I've known this man since 2011. He's the hardest working man I've ever met. He works 7 days a week for this park. He's on call every night, every weekend. He cut over $500,000 out of the budget each and every year. And he did it by doing the work himself. In other words, he cut that budget saying, I'll do the work myself. He's kept the Sylvania in check. I remember one Christmas Eve, he was actually personally out there. Instead of being with his family, he's out there raking Sylvania. Now, on Christmas Eve, that's the type of man you're talking about. The good folks on Lake Bistineau or the good folks on Wallace Lake probably would love to have a man like Robert Berry serve as a commissioner and serve as executive director. In February of 2014, and I want to make sure I make this point. In February of 2014, Mr. Berry was at the park. He saw 2 contractors being electrocuted by a transformer at the park. He saw that. He knew what was happening, and he risked his own life to run into that electrified field, to run into that area, run to try to save their lives. He actually did that to save their lives, and he suffered tremendous injuries as a result of his heroic efforts. Now, sadly, one of those men didn't survive, but one of them did, and I bet you if you ask Mr. Snell, does he like Mr. Berry being at the park? Does he like Mr. Berry being the executive director and being the commissioner? I bet he would say he did. And so why am I bringing up his excellent record of service as executive director? Okay? The reason is, and the people who are opposed, the few people who are opposed to Mr. Berry being reappointed, the few people opposed to that, the thing they don't want to tell you is that if he's not reappointed, if he's not able to continue to serve as commissioner, by virtue of the 2-year moratorium, he will be required to step down as executive director. In other words, if a vote today to appoint someone else and not appoint Mr. Berry will result in not only losing him as a commissioner, but losing him as executive director, losing the man that works 7 days a week, losing the man that's kept Sylvania in control, losing the man that risked his own life to try to save others. You know, the district itself doesn't want to lose Mr. Berry, and I'm here as a lawyer for the district to tell you that. I think y'all have seen the letter. If you don't, I have copies. But all 4 other members of the Board of Commissioners unanimously voted and signed a letter to each of y'all saying, please reappoint Mr.
Y'all all have seen that letter, haven't you? We all have a copy and we've seen it read.
Reappoint you. Yes, sir. So y'all seen that. The point is, Mr. Berry has faithfully served for 12 years as a commissioner. He's faithfully served for over a decade as executive director. His performance in both capacities is exemplary. I mean, the things he's done for that park, even the other candidates have acknowledged what a great job he's done. He relied in good faith on the advice and opinions of the lawyers in taking the job, in good faith of advice that he could lawfully and properly do it. The court litigation isn't over. But if y'all vote today to not reappoint him, the effect of that is he has to step down from both. Come August 1st, at the end of his term, he'd have to step down from both positions. If you don't reappoint him, you're going to effectively circumvent the litigation. You're going to effectively, if you don't reappoint him, you're going to effectively circumvent the due process of the judicial system. So with all due respect, I would respectfully suggest to you that you essentially be cheating this man out of his day in court. And a man who put his own life on the line to serve other people, who works out there 7 days a week, weekends, nights, 3 o'clock in the morning, deserves to have a chance to have his case heard. And so I respectfully urge you to let the court's case run its course. Let the court system handle this. Reappoint Mr. Berry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Were you paid to come here today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know.
Yes, sir. By the district, because it's important to the district.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else would like to speak before we begin the voting process? As they try to hold it down to 3 minutes or less.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm going to be very, very quick. I don't like public.
Name and address, please.
Shelley Carroll, 302 Diane Circle in Bossier City. I'm a little nervous because I don't like public speaking, so please forgive me. But I do want to speak on behalf of Mr. Berry. I think it would be a very bad decision to not reappoint him. He's very knowledgeable. He knows these lakes in and out. On a daily basis, he's helping all of his employees. He's just a good person. He wants to do good. And that's all I have to say. I just wanted to add that. I completely agree with what Mr. Ayers said. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward and speak?
I'm Gary White, 1337 Linton Road. I'm one of the commissioners on the board. I just wanted to reiterate our letter that we sent to y'all recommending that Mr. Berry be reappointed. He's done an excellent job. You've heard that from everybody that's spoken about it. And we need him, and the public that needs him on the board to continue the great work that he's done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Any questions?
That's my line.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please state your name and address, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm Jerry Fowler, 208 Chelsea Drive, Benton, Louisiana, 71006. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and I'm currently the representative of Bossier Parish School Board on the Cypress Lake Commission, been about 10 years. And I'm concerned on the appointment today of Mr. Berry. I think probably the last 10 or 12 years he's been your representative. He's done an outstanding job as your representative, not as on the board. Not only that, but his work ethic as director, his character and ethics they're above reproach. One of the accusations has been against him of a small group of people that have not gotten their way, have been told no, that they can't do this, that they have to undo this. A lot of this is from them. And one of the accusations was the dual office holding that I was talking about, but I'm not going to attempt to follow Mr. Machota and Mr. Ayers on that. I'm a school teacher. I'm not an attorney.
Or 5 or 6 judges.
They explained it fairly well. That I understand that in the past that y'all had received a petition from this group that I was talking about to remove Mr. Berry from the board. This has been a few years back. And what I was wondering is the petition you supposedly received, if you did receive it, if you bothered to check, the people that wrote it, what the accusations were, did they know where the lake was, did they know where there was signing or any of that things. But since Mr. Berry has taken over as director, talked about his work ethic, what he's done is taken on so many more jobs that were other people's jobs that saved the taxpayers of Bossier Parish thousands and thousands of dollars by doing it himself. And one simple example is that SWEPCO wanted to come in and redo all the electrical system, but they had to clear out a new right-of-way. Well, we got bids on clearing the right-of-way, and it was about $150,000 or $160,000 just to have the right-of-way cleared. Mr. Berry rented a track hoe for $25,000, and he and the 3 men that worked there at the park for him cleared that right-of-way. So that's just one example. According to our auditor, there's been some accusations maybe of some misuse of funds. According to our auditor, I believe it's Travis Morehart, and that's y'all's auditor too, I believe. So you know who I'm talking about. There's been absolutely no misuse or misappropriations of funds of any type. And the job he's done is outstanding. And said previously stated that I am the school board representative. I've lived on the lake for 23 years. So I have a vested interest in the lake, not just as a matter of serving on the board, but I'm very concerned about the lake and its condition. And I've lived here 23 years, and right now both lakes are, in my opinion, and I think some other people that have professional opinion, are in better shape now than they have ever been. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Anybody else like to speak? You can queue up, sir. Go ahead, ma'am. Have somebody after you. Please give your name and address, please.
Willa Berry, 125 Carondelet Court. I am Robert's wife. I was not planning on talking today. Like Shelley, do not like to talk in front of people. But I feel like my husband deserves this opportunity. I think he's worked hard for it. You're not going to find anybody that will put their heart and soul into this job, that loves the lake, that knows the ins, the outs, everything about. It's not just the lake, it's not just the park, it's the levees, it's the dam, it's the homeowners. And when it all boils down to everything, the flack, the nonsense, it all basically boils down to 20 people. I think y'all have all been elected to represent and take care of the community, and I think it's your job, and I think you need to consider the bigger picture, not 20 people that are disgruntled because they are in the wrong or have done something wrong or not getting their way. I think the importance of what Robert has done, his track record, and the fact that there's nobody, I don't care what their credentials are, his heart is more in tune with everything that's going on day in and day out of what happens at that park, more than anybody you would ever find. And I would really appreciate y'all appointing him, because it's our livelihood, it's his job, it's not just an appointment, it's more than that. And I think everybody needs to look into their heart and understand that it's our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
How you doing? I'm David Crockett. I'm live at 653 Dumaine Drive, Bossier City, Louisiana. I used to live on Cypress Black Bayou. I love the lake. I go fishing there. I'm 5 minutes to having my boat in, so I love the lake as much as everybody else. But I want to give a taxpayer's perspective. You know, you can't disregard the fact that the dual office holding opinions that were in the Supreme Court, I don't know if it's a judgment or whatever they call it, they rendered an opinion in there, and they consider it dual office holding. Now, whether Mr. Berry keeps one or both positions, that's a decision that the Berry family has to make. But I think so many things have come out in the meeting that ought to be considered. The taxpayers, I who don't live on the lake, some of the people who are here that don't live on the lake that are being considered for this position, you don't have to live on the lake to not appreciate the lake. The people that you have considered, that are considering today, have tremendous credentials. Sometimes change is good. I think that ought to be considered by this, because I think as tax millage comes forward, people are looking at the fact that, are we going to continue to do the same things over and over again? This court case has cost this parish, nobody has said how much it cost. I'd like to know that, because I am a taxpayer. And I guess one of the issues that you have going forward is, as we continue to want to make I've used the lake, I love the park part, the museum part, or where all the animal things, my daughters learn how to navigate, how to identify animals. I love that. But I want it to continue to get the support of the people. And I think that you have to consider the fact that in that Supreme Court decision, there was an opinion that it was dual office holding. So I think that ought to be considered in who you appoint. But going back to the fact that some of the people that have put their names forward, how could you not have severe appreciation for somebody that has a chemical background, somebody that has that military discipline? Anybody that gets this job is going to love that job. Who, as a child, did not think, oh man, this would be almost like being a park service guy, that you can't ever get those jobs. This is one of the dream jobs that any man would like to have. So I think you have great people to consider. I don't know Mr. Berry personally. He's probably one of the most amazing people, has a great family. But every family in this community loves that lake. And I don't think we need the controversy when we need this tax renewal and future tax renewals. I think we need to avoid controversy. This parish needs to develop a strong opinion of the public that we're not appointing people just because they've done the job in the past, and we need to consider other opinions. So those are my thoughts on this. I appreciate the opportunity to come, and this is my first time at a police jury meeting. I love your rules. They invite comment. They're very easy to come and add yourself if you need to, and that's my praise to you guys as police jurymen. So thank you.
Stay with us just a second. Any questions, Mr. Crockett?
And thank you for answering my email. I appreciated that.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
No one else does. You're active in the term limits movement,
Absolutely.
right? Just curious, have somebody been on the board for 12 years. Does that come under y'all's concern, these boards and stuff, people serving long-term, or?
Well, thank you for asking. Do you have an
curious.
hour?
Never mind. I withdraw the question.
No, let me just give you a few minutes. We do have an interest.
No, we cannot have 3
No, just in a short thing. We do have an interest in term limits for the police jury. We think it would be an improvement.
No, I'm talking about for board appointments.
Oh, board. Oh, listen, yes.
I was just curious if it extended to that.
I was at the meeting where you were, Mr. Rimmer, and I really appreciate your question on that. I think the Republican RPEC And now my conversations and experience with the DPEC is that there's a desire for term limits throughout the parish and throughout city government. There are plenty of, but yes, even on boards, I think that that is an improvement because it invites new ideas. And that's what you're doing with this, and it's a great point that you make.
I was wondering, because I made a motion that they would do term limits for the RPEC, and they didn't even want to consider that, tabled it. I was kind of concerned. That's surprising.
I have no objection to that. I think term limits should belong everywhere. I think there is a concern with RPEC and things like that because a lot of times it's hard to get somebody to volunteer for that. But you see, you have plenty of volunteers, and I think that one of the things that happens with term limits is once you have them, more people are willing to put their name forward. It's not that there aren't a lot of volunteers. A lot of people want to volunteer, but they see that it's hard to compete and put their names forward like you see today. And if you want to encourage more participation, and the other thing is the way you invite those things, then maybe you can get additional tax millage if people learn to appreciate the fact that there is change and there's opportunity. But
Thank you for your comments and input.
Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to come forward to speak? State your name and address, please.
My name is John Oswick, and I'm at 2138 Airline Drive. And I had a speech prepared for Mr. Robert Berry, but I feel like a lot of people have already kind of reiterated what I wanted to say. But I wanted to go from a personal aspect. It would be Labor Day weekend of 2021 when southern Louisiana had that really bad hurricane. I had worked about 70 hours that week, hand in hand with Robert Berry. He was there every step of the way, first one there, last one to leave. And I know for a fact he spent a lot of his own personal money to just try to provide a little bit of relief for these people in difficult times. I don't believe you'll find anyone better for the job that's willing to put in the time and the effort just to make everybody happy and to kind of keep everything flowing. That's all I had.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody question for him? All right. Anybody else would like to speak before we vote on our first? All right.
Mr. President, if there's no other, I would just like to say, I appreciate all of the accolades about Mr. Berry. And like the gentleman just said about when we had the people that came over here from, the hurricanes down south. I was over there and I witnessed the facts of Mr. Berry doing extraordinary. And with this today, I've heard a little bit about it here and there. Especially, I had a little reluctance about certain things. And I've been cleared up here in this meeting about this, especially through the trial process. If the Supreme Court is still got to deal with whatever they got to do, and the 26th got to deal with whatever they have to do, with all these accolades about Mr. Berry and the board has approved him another term, I would be in agreement to either we table this until we get a clear-cut understanding on Mr. Berry, or maybe we could go ahead and do a temporary appointment, through these resumes, pending the outcome of the courts.
Anybody else have any comments that you finished?
Yes, sir.
Was that a comment or a motion?
That's a comment. It's a comment.
It's
All
a
right,
comment.
all right, I will now open the floor for any motions, Mr.
I make a
Rodgers.
motion,
I would like to comment before we move on to the vote.
That's why I was wanting, before we
Okay,
started.
I didn't know if we were still talking about Mr. Gray's.
But you can make a comment on his comment or just about the general procedure.
Okay, I think before we move on, we have to decide if any of these candidates are not eligible based on the law. And so before we can move on to voting, we need to understand who's up and available to be appointed. And so in order to do that, we have to just determine if Mr. Berry is somebody that we can vote on. We've heard from his attorneys today who have expressed their arguments as to what the Supreme Court ruling meant. At the end of the day, if there has been a ruling that it's a violation, to, no matter what a good job Mr. Berry has done, which we all agree with, that he's done a great job. Nobody works harder. Nobody would be better for the position. I don't think we disagree with that. However, to ask us to do something that would be contrary to the law, is just not something that can be done. And so before we move on, I would like to hear from the attorney, because, everybody knows I'm an attorney. I'm not the parish attorney. The parish attorney is appointed by the district attorney, who is elected by the people to provide legal opinions. That's not what I was elected for, so I have to defer to the opinions of the attorney that's been elected to provide an opinion. And so we've heard from Mr. Berry's attorney, but I would like to hear from the parish attorney, or the person who's sitting in for him today, about what the effect is of the Supreme Court ruling.
Sure. Because of her request, we'd like for you to do that.
Certainly. Neil Irwin, sitting in for Patrick Jackson. Mr. Machota is correct in saying that the case is not over. However, based on my own experience of over 40 years, I think every attorney would agree that what has been said by the Supreme Court goes beyond a simple remand without more. The Supreme Court remanded with a finding of law that I would characterize as a remand with guidance, that any lower court is going to have to pay attention to, agree with, or not agree with. So it is true that it is not over. It is pertinent that it has been remanded with guidance. But there are arguments both ways in terms of saying whether it is anything more than pertinent and could be controlling. I think it is pertinent. I do not think it is controlling in terms of your decision today. And as elected officials, you have legislative discretion as to who you think would be the most qualified person for this position. And it is a fact, and I confirmed it with looking at the Code of Ethics, that if Mr. Berry is not reappointed, then he will have to step down as executive director. It says, during the 2-year period following the termination of public service as a board or commission member, an individual may not contract with, be employed in any capacity by, or be appointed to any position by that board or commission. That was brought up by Mr. Ayers, and it is a pertinent point. But I stress again, this is pertinent information, but it is not controlling information. You have within your legislative discretion the ability to determine the most qualified individual for this position and choose that person accordingly.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I'd like to make a short comment and then make a motion. I agree with a lot was said here today. I agree the lakes look better than they ever have. I was elected 4 years ago, fixing to run again, and I feel like with that, what I've dealt with for the last 4 years has been more than 20 people and upset. And so I know Mr. Rodney Madden personally. I think he's a super good guy. I think he'll do right by the lake. And just like me, if I get voted out, there'll be somebody else. And I think they will do just as good a job as I do or not. But that's up to the public to decide. So with that, I make the motion that we vote for Rodney Madden to be appointed.
Have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Salzer. Any comments before we vote?
We're
Just going to vote right now for whether we appoint Rodney Madden or not. If he gets 6 votes, he's the appointee.
If he doesn't get it, it'll go.
We'll go to the next, whoever wants to, the next motion.
Right.
Please vote. Yes, it's, or no, Mr. Rodney Madden. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it passes, and Mr. Rodney Madden is the new, effective August 1st, appointee for representing the Bossier Parish Police Jury. I want to thank everybody for coming. I would personally ask that a letter of appreciation go out to Mr. Berry for all the exemplary work that he's done over his service time, 12 years with as our appointee.